There was a woman who went with her husband to the doctor, and he had some kind of illness. I didn't know what it was, and so she went with him to the doctor, and the doctor checked him all out, sent him back out into the waiting room, called the wife in, sat her down, and she obviously knew something was up. Doctor, what's going on? She said, your husband's very sick. He's, in fact, suffering from a very severe disorder. And if you don't follow my instructions very carefully, he'll most certainly die. And she said, okay, tell me, what do I need to do? And he said, well, you've got to serve his every need. You need to make sure that first thing in the morning that he has a very nutritious and full breakfast. And you need to make sure that things are pleasant in your home all the time. Don't share any bad news with him. Don't share anything you're struggling with. If he doesn't want to talk, don't talk. Just keep things pleasant and quiet. He can't be stressed. When lunchtime comes around, same thing. You need to have just a great hot meal for him, ready to go, ready to eat. Throughout the day, you need to look for opportunities to give him a full body massage, foot massage, anything that you can do to help relieve his stress. Don't burden him with chores. Don't ask him to do anything around the house. Like I said, don't discuss problems with him. When dinner comes around, same thing. You just need to do your best. Put your best effort out. Make him a great meal. Make sure that he's happy, that he's enjoying. Do whatever he needs. If you will serve him like this for the next 10 or 12 months, I think he'll make it. If you don't, I'm just going to tell you straight up, he's going to die. Do you understand what I'm telling you? She said, yes, I think I do. I think I understand. So she came out of the doctor's office, and the husband just kind of looked at her, and she just walked by him, and he followed her out. They got in the car. There was this long period of silence as they were driving home, and finally the husband said very soberly, he said, so it must be pretty bad. What did the doctor say? She began to tear up, and she looked at him, and she said, the doctor said you're going to die. See, for most of us, serving doesn't come second nature. For most of us, we have to really work at serving. We love being served. I didn't hear an amen, but I know it's true. In fact, we have a whole segment of our economy called the service industry, right? Where businesses do their best to serve us. In fact, they are looking all the time for better ways to serve us so that we will come to their establishment or buy their product or whatever it may be. They want to serve us in such a way that we keep coming back. And so the more that they try to get better at serving, arguably the more spoiled we become, right? McDonald's has this app. I don't know if you know this. We discovered this summer when we were on the mainland. They have this app, and they put their specials for the day. Sometimes they give away freebies. We got tons of freebies this summer. Don't even like McDonald's, but I like freebies. But one of the things that they've started to do is you can order off of your app, and then you go to that closest McDonald's, and they've got special parking stalls now that you drive up into, and they bring your order out that you ordered off of your app. They bring it to your car. You roll your window down, they give you your order, and you drive away. I mean, you talk about service. You don't even have to get out of your car to order. I mean, this is better than drive-through because I don't even have to speak. I just have to punch it, tap a particular menu. You don't have to get out. Don't have to, break a sweat. Only have a few seconds where I have to have the air conditioner off for the person to hand me the bag. The service is amazing, and we love that. And we want them to do more because we love to be served. the reality is, we are supposed to be the servants. We started this new series last week, and I'm simply calling it Like Jesus. And we talked about the idea last time that if we want to be like Jesus, we need to forgive like Jesus. And we talked about all of what that meant. And this morning, where we're going to go is this idea of serving. If we're going to look like Jesus, we need to serve like Jesus. Let's go back to that text that came up a little bit earlier, John chapter 13. For many of us, this is a familiar passage, but to me it's one of the most significant and picturesque passages in all of Scripture, and I'll explain that as we go along. But let me read it for you again. John chapter 13 and verse 1, it said, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and returned to God. So, he got up from the table. He took off his robe. He wrapped a towel around his waist and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that he had around him. This whole scene is so amazing, and I want to paint the picture for you. This takes place during what we normally refer to in Christian circles as the Last Supper. It was really the last Passover. Jesus was with his disciples on the night he was going to be betrayed, arrested, and the next day he would die. And so he knows all of this. If you read that passage closely, he knows this. He's just hours away from taking the sin of the world on himself. He's spending time with these that he had poured into over the last several years. And you go, man, what is it? Why is it what is it that I would want to say to people that I was close to, knowing that I just had a short time to live? And at this point, he doesn't say anything, but he does something incredibly significant. He gets up and he washes their feet. Now, something that you and I don't know from this particular passage, but Luke tells us in his account of this story, is that around the same time, either before this incident or after it, his disciples started having an argument about who was the greatest. In fact, it says this in Luke 22:24, then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. So here on the eve of the crucifixion, the most important time in human history, the time that Jesus was going to take the sin of the world on himself, bearing this burden, knowing this is going to happen, he steps into this room with his disciples. If it hadn't already happened, he at least knew in their hearts the pride that was there, wondering which one of us is greater. Oh, Peter's going, I think I'm the greatest. I walked on water. Somebody says, nah, but you sunk. You fell, right? And one of the others, John says, no, I'm the greatest because Jesus said I'm the one he loved. And so they're having this battle. And if it hadn't taken place at that point, it was going to take place. And Jesus knew their hearts and he knew the pride that was there. And he looks around and what does he see? He sees proud hearts and he sees dirty feet. And would you put this down? If we're going to serve like Jesus, we need to see a need and meet it. Now think about it. This is not just any time, any day, any situation. The burden that Jesus was bearing was very real. And yet, instead of putting it all back, guys, listen, you guys, what's wrong with you? What are you having this debate for? Don't you realize what's going to happen to me in just a few hours? Can't you get your minds off yourself for a minute and think about somebody else? Think about me. See, that's what I would be doing. That's what I would try to direct it back toward my sorrow and my pain and everything that was going to happen to me. And what's wrong with you guys? And he doesn't do that. He picks up a towel, takes off his robe, grabs a basin. Now can you imagine? Again, we don't know exactly the timing of the different circumstances of the Last Supper, but just think, if the debate was going on about who was going to be greatest, and Jesus just simply quietly gets up, takes off his robe, grabs this towel, gets this basin, somebody's got to notice this. One of the disciples has got to notice, hey, what's Jesus doing? See, because back in that time, if you went to somebody's home and you wanted to show them honor and show them that you were an honorable person, you would have somebody wash their feet. You wouldn't do it. It was for the lowliest servant in the household or the youngest child that was able to do it. But not an adult, not somebody who, had significance. It was for the lowly. Never would the person who owned the home, never would the person who's throwing the party or the dinner be the person that washed feet. But it was a common courtesy. It was a show of honor and hospitality. And here's Jesus taking on this particular situation. If we're going to serve like Jesus, we need to see a need and we need to meet it. And would you put this down? As we do that, we need to understand that there's no service that is beneath you. Verse 3 says, Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and he would return from God. See, Jesus served from a position of knowing the authority that he had. Folks, it says that he took off his robe. But would you picture something a little different with me this morning? Here is the King of Kings. Here is the Creator washing the feet of the created. It's as if he took off his crown, set it down, and washed their feet. See, there's nothing, if Jesus could do that, there is nothing that's too lowly for us to do. There's nothing that should be beneath us. In fact, we go further down in the story, in verse 12, it says, after washing their feet, he put his robe on again, and he sat down and he asked, do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. Jesus basically says, do you guys get this? Do you understand what this is all about? I'm your teacher. I'm your Lord. I'm your rabbi. I'm the guy that's been with you, training you for 3.5 years. And if I can do this for you, you need to be doing it for each other. He's giving them an example. Now, in a lot of places, they see this as literal. That, just like we have the Lord's Supper, we do that, we should be washing each other's feet literally. And that's okay. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's wrong to do, but I think it misses the point, and it maybe even lets us off the hook. Because Jesus is saying so much more than literally washing each other's feet. I mean, that might be a tough thing to do for some of us, right? But I think there's probably things that would be tougher. I think if I washed your feet and I thought that's all I needed to do, that may let me off the hook for some really lowly servant things that I really don't want to do. Hey, the feet's kind of tough, but to meet a need that you have, to meet you at a place where you're at emotionally, physically, that may be tougher than me actually stooping down and literally washing your feet off. And the point that Jesus was trying to make here is you need to serve each other like I have served you. This foot washing thing was kind of the climax of all the service that Jesus had done for them in the 3.5 years. And it would really climax with an exclamation point the next day when he died on the cross for them. That would be the ultimate service. And so Jesus said, look, I am your Savior. I am your Lord. If I can do this, you need to do this. If you and I are going to serve like Jesus, we need to see needs. We need to meet them. We need to understand that there's nothing that should be beneath us. But again, I don't know if you're like me, but too many times I see a situation, I go, well, that's not for me. That's for somebody else. I shouldn't have to do that. After all, I'm Pastor Randy. A few years ago, there was a single mom that moved into our neighborhood. And she had a son, a young son. And we got to meet them and invited them to church. And they came to church for a while. And her son got involved in our Awana program. And after a while, she decided that she was going to fellowship at another church on island because she felt like the style of worship was just more comfortable for her, which was fine. And so she started attending this other church. But her son stayed involved in our Awana program. And like I said, she lived real close to us, so we would see her all the time. And because we're in the same neighborhood, I noticed that her yard was constantly in need of help. And I also noticed her struggle a few times. I don't honestly remember all the specifics, but if I am recalling it right, she had an old lawnmower and it broke. And yeah, her yard was just a mess. And it wasn't right next to my yard, so it wasn't a big deal, right? Because it's not next to mine, so it doesn't make my yard look bad. But I remember very distinctly one day that the Lord impressed upon me, you need to go clean her yard. And I started having one of those arguments with God that are really stupid. God, I don't really have time. That's another 45 minutes to an hour. I just don't have time to mow her yard. I'll send Kale to mow her yard. I mean, that's why we have children, isn't it, Vi? So that they can... I've got so many things to do that are important. This isn't really that important. And can I be honest with you? Part of my argument was, and besides, she doesn't even go to our church. Somebody from her church should take care of her yard, not me. You know, God would not shut up. He kept saying, you clean her yard. So I cleaned her yard. And I did take Kale with me. And what came from that is not just one time, but every time we would go to clean our yard, it was like God was saying, don't forget hers. And so we'd clean our yard, and we'd go over and clean her yard. And you know what? I started thinking, yeah, I've got the equipment. I'm in good health. Why not? I can do that. And so we just did it until the day she moved. We cleaned her yard. It was a need that was right in front of my face, in my neighborhood, right across the street. It was a need that I could meet because I had everything available to meet that need. I struggled with it because I didn't want to serve in that way. See, because a lot of times we get an idea in our mind that service is going to look a certain way. My serving has got to fall into certain categories. This is the way that Randy serves. Doing this. Not mowing someone's grass. But God said, no, here's a need. You can do that. you can meet that need. Now, where are the needs around us? I don't think you have to look very hard. We walk around this campus and you see a full garbage can. And our first thought is, man, somebody needs to take care of that. Well, you know what? I can do that. Kids, we need people to serve in our children. Man, somebody take care of those kids. Man, they're out of control. Maybe that's an area where you could serve. Maybe it's something in your neighborhood. Somebody's moving in or out. And you go, man, I can help. I can serve in that way. Maybe it's something bigger than that. Maybe it's meeting someone's financial need because God has maybe given you a little surplus and you can serve in that way. And you may battle it at first, but then you realize, no, I can do that. See, folks, it's not that there aren't needs around us. They're all around us. And if we're going to serve like Jesus served, we need to be aware of those needs, realize there's nothing that should be beneath us, and we need to be willing to meet those needs. And would you put this down? If we're going to serve like Jesus, we need to see those needs around us and meet them serving with the right motive. When you serve, no one needs to know. Didn't stand out at the top of our street and say, by the way, everybody, just want you to know, you don't need to mow so-and-so's yard today because I got it covered. Didn't do one of these. Hashtag serving Jesus. If you notice in this whole scene in John 13, Jesus doesn't say anything till the end when it's all over. And then he asks, did you get this? Did you get it? Why would he have to ask that? Because he never said anything while he was doing it. Now, there is a little chunk there that you'll read about where Peter goes, no, Jesus, you're not going to wash me. And that's a whole other part of the story that we're not going to go into this morning. But there's nothing there where Jesus is really trying to put any kind of spotlight on himself. But that's our tendency, isn't it? We want people to know that we've served. We want people to know that we've sacrificed. It was hard, but I did it for Jesus, right? To serve like Jesus isn't just about right actions, it's about right motives. And that, folks, is hard stuff sometimes, isn't it? If we want to be honest. It's hard because we like the pats on the back and we like people to see what we're doing. But if we're going to serve like Jesus, then we've got to be ready to see those needs and meet them. Knowing that there's nothing that really should be beneath us and doing it with the right motive. Here's the second thing I want to show you this morning. If we're going to serve like Jesus, we need to realize that serving is not what you do, but a servant is who you are. It's a big difference. It's not just that we serve. If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, you have been called to be a servant. That's your identity. Listen to what Jesus said about himself. Matthew 20:28. He said, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. See, look, when we say, yeah, man, I want to be like Jesus, that means I'm going to do what he does. And when I do what he does in the area of service, I need to realize that it's not just serving as something that I do, but it's a servant that I am. That's my identity. I am a servant. See, because if it's only what I do, then I'll just do it periodically. And then I'm just a person that serves once in a while. But if I understand that that's my identity, that I'm a servant, then I will start to get in the mindset that I am to be serving all the time. Not just on sporadic occasions, not just when there's a call for, man, we really need, would you really help us? We need you in this area. And sometimes what happens is we almost feel like, okay, I guess they really need me. I guess I'll go serve. That's not the heart of a servant. That's the heart of somebody that just feels like, well, I guess I want to get them off my back. Tired of hearing that dumb announcement about hollow him. Right? But a servant is one that says, where are the needs? I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. Somebody says, why are you doing that? Well, because I'm a servant. I'm a servant, get this, of the Most High God. Wow. I mean, what an amazing thought. Servant of the Most High God. Amazing. Did you put this down? Serving changes things. Like what? Like my heart. Get this. When you serve others, God changes lives, and the first life He usually changes is yours. When you serve, God uses that service to change lives, but the first life that's usually changed is yours. You say, well, what does that look like? This is where it gets tough. You ready? You want to make a difference in your marriage? Start being a servant. Start serving. Well, but I'm not getting my needs met. Serve. But they'll walk all over you. Serve. But they'll take advantage. You are a servant, not of that spouse, but of the Most High God. Serve. Want to make a difference in your church? Hey, there are a lot of things that aren't the best here. So you go, yeah, you want to see my list? I wrote this list of all. But I've found the people that are most critical of the church are the ones that do the least. You want to make a difference in our church? Serve. Well, I'm not really sure where my gifts are. Don't wait to figure it out. Look around, see a need, and meet it. It might be dumping a garbage can. It might be serving in the nursery. It might be helping to stack chairs, putting chairs out. It might be picking up rubbish outside. I don't know, but you want to make a difference in the church. Serve. Louise and I decided years ago, you go, oh yeah, you're the pastor, it's easy for you to say, hey, I haven't always been a pastor, she hasn't always been a pastor's wife. We were normal people just like you. And we were in church, just normal people in a church. And we sat for a while, but we decided as young adults in our early 20s, only married for a short time, there's something that we can do here. We shouldn't just be consumers. We should be serving. And so we started to serve. And the most obvious place that they needed help in the church that we were at the time was their junior church program. It was terrible. And we had never taught junior church before, but we said, you know what? We grew up in the church. We kind of know what not to do. We can do that. And we went in there and we began to serve, and we were the only ones for the longest time. In fact, it was so bad. The church that we attended had a Wednesday night midweek prayer service, and one time we went to the midweek prayer service, which we didn't get to go to a lot because of our schedules in the school that we worked at, but we showed up that particular night, and these people came up to us and said, oh, welcome to our church. We've been going here for 2 years. But we weren't ever in the service on Sunday morning because we were serving in the junior church ministry. But what happened was the Lord allowed us to be able to start getting other folks involved. And we started building that program up to where it wasn't just one group where all these kids of all ages were in there, but we could actually split it into age groups, and we had people, and it started getting a rotation, and so that we could sit in the services, and it grew. It took time, but it grew. And it's like, wow, you guys must have had a lot of experience. We had zero experience. We start off with like 3 and 4-year-olds, right? I didn't know how to deal with 3 and 4-year-olds. The first baby I ever held was my son, was Clinton. I didn't grow up around babies. I didn't grow up around family that had babies. And so here we are working with these little kids. I mean, praise the Lord for Louise. I mean, she was the one that kind of got us through it. But we saw a need, and we said, you know what? Let's give it a shot. We can do it. Oh, so God gifted you. He gifted you to work with children, and you knew that was your spiritual gift? I had no clue what my spiritual gift was at that time. I wasn't trying to figure out what my spiritual gift was. I just knew I needed to be serving, and there was a need, and so we stepped into it. And so, folks, sometimes we make things so complicated that we're stifled. You want to make a difference in your marriage? Start serving. You want to make a difference in the church? Start serving. You want to make a difference on our island? Start serving. There's so much to do. There's so many things that could be done that don't get recognition, that don't get the pats on the back. You won't get an article in the paper. You won't get something put online. But you're serving, and you're going to make changes in individuals' lives. But the most important change that will begin to take place is in your own heart and your own life. Because you and I have been called to be servants of the Most High God. Serving changes things, and would you put this down? And this is amazing. Serving brings blessing. And it's right there in John 13. Jesus gets all done, and he asks the guys near the end of this whole scene, hey, do you understand what I'm doing? I, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet. You should be washing others. And listen to what he says in verse 17 of John 13. Now that you know these things, listen, God will bless you for doing them. I don't know if you can get any clearer than that. When you serve like Jesus served, you will be blessed. I don't know about you, but I like blessings. I want to be blessed. Somebody goes, I don't know why God's not blessing me. Well, maybe you should serve. Well, is there any other way I can get blessed? Probably, but I know for sure if you serve, you're going to get blessed because it's a promise that Jesus gave. So you want blessing? Serve. I know, it sounds kind of hard. Well, then maybe you don't want blessing. I want blessing. And when you get a mindset of a servant and you serve, get ready, because along with that comes blessing. It's a promise. And can I tell you this? Very similar to what we just talked about. The people or the person that you serve may or may not get blessed, but you will, because it's a promise. You may serve somebody and they may act like you're supposed to do it. So I'm not thanking you. I'm not going to. And you may walk away and feel kind of empty and go, man, Lord, I thought I was really doing something good by serving them. And the reality is they may not get a blessing out of it or let you know that they got a blessing out of it, but you will get blessed somewhere along the line. That's God's promise. And so we look at this thing, and our first thought, so many times, we don't like to admit it, is, what's in it for me? If I serve, if I wash feet, what do I get out of it? Well, if you do it with the right heart attitude, understanding that there's nothing that should be too lowly for you to do, and you do it like Jesus did it, there's going to be blessing in it. That's what's in it for you. And you know what? You just got to know. We live in such a service-oriented society. Even, I'm going to say it, even here on Molokai, right? We do a lot better than most, but honestly, a lot of times there's strings attached. Because if I go out and help you with your party, when I have a party, I'm going to expect you to help me with my party. That's not really serving. That's, at best, giving with strings attached. It's kind of like when we were kids. I'll go to your birthday party and bring you a gift if you come to my birthday party and bring me a gift. Right? See, to serve like Jesus looks totally different. And please understand, I am not dissing on our community or our culture. I love what's here. But I think we as followers of Jesus can do better. Because serving is not something that we do. A servant is who we are. And if we'll serve with a right heart attitude like Jesus did, realizing that there's nothing really that should be beneath us, watch out. People on the outside will notice. People will go, you know, those people, they are really servants. And I'd like to know why. And when you start doing things outside of this church, serving in different ways, you may not get noticed right away, but somebody's going to notice. And somebody's going to say, I want to know what's going on with them. I want to know what's going on with that group. Why do they do that? And when we demonstrate that we're not doing it for the pat on the back, we're not doing it for the glory for ourselves, we're doing it because we're servants of the Most High God, there's going to be change. There's going to be change. Listen, the greatest servant of all is the one that we're supposed to imitate, Jesus Christ. And the greatest act of serving was when he died on that cross and gave his life for you and me. What possibly could he ask us to do that's going to be greater than that example of service? Would you bow your heads, please, and close your eyes?